Okay.
You start whenever you're ready. Perfect. So like I said, I'm just going to have you say your first, last name, any titles, ranks, right? And your dates and places of service.
Okay, excellent. Hi, everybody. My name is Ed Gadson. I am a Chief Petty Officer, once a Chief, always a Chief, Navy Chief Petty Officer. I served in the Navy Submarine Service from 1978 until 1993. And initially, I was stationed in Orlando, Florida, where I did boot camp. I left there, I went to Pensacola, Florida, where I did A school, B school, and advanced electronics school, and where I volunteered for submarine service. After that, I was stationed in New London, Connecticut, where later on in my career, I became a master training specialist and a Navy instructor in advanced electronics. During Desert Storm, I was also attached to Sub-Devron 12 out of Groton, Connecticut, where I served aboard USS Dallas, SSN 700, the same submarine that's in the motion picture, The Hunt for Red October. That's my boat. I'm one of the initial crew members on that submarine. When Desert Storm came about, I was transferred to Norfolk, Virginia, where I served as the leading chief petty officer in the optical shop aboard USS Emory S. Land, AS-39. And then I received orders to USS Baton Rouge out of New London, not New London, but Norfolk, Virginia. And that's where we deployed overseas to Desert Storm. When I came back, I was assigned to Mobile Technical Unit 2, which is a ready team, basically, and we flew all over the world to repair submarines. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Right. First question.
Yeah.
Were there any instances of discrimination or prejudice you experienced while serving? How did you handle them?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. I'll go back a little bit. During my high school years, I got to experience, which was in the 60s and early 70s. Where we lived was in West Orange, New Jersey, where I went to high school. I was the only Black kid in the entire high school. So at the time, I hated that, but I'm glad I experienced that because it helped me later on in life in similar scenarios where, I was the only Black person wherever it happened to be. I became comfortable with that and I knew how to deal with it. So as far as in the military, I experienced prejudice aboard the submarines that I served because there's not very many African-American sailors that volunteer for submarine duty. For example, aboard USS Dallas, we had a crew complement of 120 sailors. There were only 2 African-Americans. So yes, I experienced a lot of subtle, it wasn't outright, but I knew I was being discriminated against.
Okay. What was the most impactful moment during your military service?
I would have to say when I pinned on my anchors, when I achieved the rank of Navy Chief Petty Officer, E7. And actually that kind of feeds into the question that I just answered as far as the prejudice. My way up, and I learned this when I was in high school, that I couldn't settle disputes like this, couldn't fight all of them, but I could with this. So what that did was it just kicked me into high gear to learn everything I need to learn so I could make rank. So even if they didn't respect me, they respected the rank. They had to, no choice.
Absolutely. It's brilliant.
Right.
So how did you adjust to civilian life after your military service ended?
Another great question that I chose. Okay. Yeah, so when I was discharged and honorably discharged, actually I chose to discharge. I served for 16 years. And shortly after Desert Storm, I think it was a year and a half, maybe 2 years after Desert Storm, I wasn't doing very well as far as my mental health. And I became a secret alcoholic, I'll put it that way. And it had not yet affected my career, but I knew that if I continued drinking the way that I was, sooner or later, I was going to lose what I had achieved. So when it came around time for me to re-enlist for my final 4 years, I had to sit down with my skipper, who and my skipper was great. He said, "Chief, you got 4 years to go. Come on, man, we need you. Stay with the team and all of this kind of stuff." I said, "Sir, permission to speak quick, frankly." And he said, "Go right ahead, Chief." And I said, "I can't do it. I'm done. If I continue on like this, I'm going to destroy everything that I achieved." So he understood that and he respected my wishes. So I was honorably discharged on May 18th, which is what, May 18th is coming around.
Wow.
May 18th, 1993. And so my transition, that was the question, right? My transition was rough. As I mentioned, um, I had I had a bout with alcoholism, and when I discharged from the Navy, that turned into drug addiction. So for the first couple of years, um, I don't even remember what I was doing, but I know it landed me in the homeless incarceration and that type of deal. That was going on down in Norfolk until I reached out for help with VA. Right.
So that goes into my next question, right?
Okay.
What resources were available to you upon returning home, and were they sufficient to meet your needs?
That's another great question. At the time in 1993, when I got discharged, or when I was discharged and chose to discharge from the military, got to get those words right. Um, the transition was rough because the military at that time didn't have what we call a TAP program. I believe they call it now, Transition Assistance Program. At the time I was in, it was like, "Oh, Chief, you're getting out, let's party. Chief, you're getting out, let's party." That was my transition. So, when I hit the pavement outside the gate, I was on my own, and I had no idea where the resources were, how to get enrolled with VA care or anything in the community. So I had to find it out myself at that time. So it was rough. It took a while, but I was determined not to continue down that path because that's not who I am. That's not how I was brought up. Not how I was raised. That's not what's in my chest that keeps me driving. That's not what I want the legacy to be for my grandchildren and my daughter and my family. So sleeping. Yeah.
Thank you. And a really interesting question. How did your military experience influence your perspective on society and your approach to life after service?
Ask my wife. Okay, I can't get out of that one. It's still, even though it's been quite a while since I left the military. The military is ending. There are certain expectations that I have. The military trained me on, as far as my discipline, my self-control. Everything has to be in order. There's a 1 or a 0. There's no in between. It's either black or it's white. There's no gray. I want it when I want it. And the fact that I was a chief petty officer, it's really difficult for me to accept when people challenge what I said, because in the military, I said it's gospel. I said I want it. That means now, not tomorrow. And I have to chill on that sometimes. Sometimes it comes out. Initially when I got out, I had a really tough time because that's the mindset I was in, and society doesn't operate that way. So I had a pretty rough time of adjusting to civilian life, and it's ongoing.
And one last question. What are some lessons you learned during your military service that you carry with you today?
Make up your bed. Make your bed. Always make your bed. Because it's the first thing that you're going to do today, and it's the first task that you complete that day, and that first task that you attempt that day is going to be successful because you successfully made up your bed. Even if you have a rough day, you come home to a made-up bed. Here's the most important one. When you make up your bed, it's going to come a time when you tuck those sheets and you got to get on your knees. That's the opportunity to talk to the man upstairs. No excuses. There's a lot of benefits to making up your bed. That's huge. My wife will tell you, got to make up my bed.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go. You know, it's better.
Can you talk about your therapy horseback riding a little bit for us?
Sure. Yes. So um, I love horses. Horses, God, they they are my spirit animal. They're my heart animal. I've been riding horses since what was it, 2018, something like that. But anyway, um, I ride once or twice, 3 times a week. At that, I go out to Warsaw. There's a farm. It's called Walcott Farms. Tina Tina Walcott, she owns a farm. She has about 40, 45 horses. She has like 50, 60 acres out there, nothing but hills, green hills, rolling hills forever, and trees, and big old windmills, and all of that kind of stuff. Um, so I'm connected with 2 horses. My main man is Echo. He's a Tennessee Walker. I'm 6'2". He's about 6'5". The horses are measured in hands, but he's I love that horse because he has PTSD as well. Um, I was diagnosed with PTSD, but it's under control. I know how to cope with it. Um, so the horse was mistreated, and he was basically a rescue horse. So when I first went to the farm, Tina and I went with a bunch of veterans, with a group of veterans, and my wife. And we went up there, and she said, "Well, just meet the horses. Just walk around and see what horse catches your attention." And this horse was just raising sand. I mean, kicking the stalls and biting other horses, and he was just unruly and all this kind of. I looked at him for a while and I said, "I want to work with this guy here." Tina looked at me and said, "Nobody works with him." And I said, "Well, I want to work with him." She said, "Okay, now I'm the only person that he will allow to work with him." Um, so over time, I found out that he was mistreated, that he was tied up and he was hit, and all of that kind of stuff. And so he has post-traumatic stress. He went through traumatic experience, so he has PTSD, and so do I. And somehow we bond with each other. When my symptoms are elevated, and I get away. Sometimes my wife tells me, "You need some horse time," and I'll go hang out with my horse and just hug up on him and love up on him and stuff like that. Just talk with him, walk him around, and hold his big old head and tell him all my problems. And I feel that he connects with me. He knows where I'm at and he meets me where I'm at. All right. Or sometimes I'll go up there and he's acting weird. And just by my voice and just by my touch, it gets to calm him down. Um, but horses are horses are fantastic. They're fantastic. Just a week before last, I had 13 veterans up there at the farm riding. On the 31st, I'm taking another group of veterans up there. I'm an ambassador for Higher Ground um, Therapeutic Recreation for veterans and first responders. So, and this just happened recently. So now I have a budget to do whatever the veterans and the first responders want to do. And it's horsemanship. So,
Thank you.
right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I was nervous, man.
Yes, no, I appreciate